Thank you all so much for joining us. We're very excited. This is our first virtual admissions event for the new season, so we're so excited to welcome all of you. We're so happy to have all of you join our EMBA Dean's preview. We have a great event planned with a brief intro by our dean, followed by an illustrious EMBA alumni panel that we're very excited for all of you to get to meet. And you will have a chance to be able to ask questions for all of us at the end of the event. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our EMBA admissions team. So I am Sarika Thacker, Executive Director of Admissions. We have Christina Morentes, our Senior Associate Director of Admissions, who you'll hear from in a little bit. Shannon Bell, our Director of EMBA Admissions Strategy and Marketing. And Vanessa Esquera, our Admissions Manager. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us. We'll have our email address at the end of the presentation. So with that, now I would like to introduce our Dean, Professor Gonzalo Freixes. Professor Freixes is the Associate Dean of our EMBA and our FEMBA programs, and is also a professor of tax law and accounting. In addition, he heads up many of our international business residentials for EMBA students that he'll be more than excited to talk to you about shortly. So with that said, I will pass it on to Gonzalo.
Thank you, Sarika, and welcome everybody. It's great to see you on Zoom. One of these days, hopefully soon, we'll see you live on campus. I thought I would start just by kind of reflecting a little bit, because you're probably wondering, like, gosh, are classes live? Are they on Zoom? What's happening? What will my MBA look like when I start next year? Of course, you know, we've all learned that with COVID that you can't predict the future, right? But I am very, very happy to report that we are back on campus. UCLA is populated with all its students again, 99% of whom have been vaccinated. We have launched our own MBA programs. Our full-time programs started at the beginning of August. We had our 1-week leadership foundations in our executive and part-time MBA programs with all of the new students that were very excited to start their program just a couple of weeks ago. And just last week, we started classes. So now the students are coming for their weekend classes, and some of them are taking, of course, weeknight electives. So we are back in business, and in case you were wondering about that, and that's the game plan moving forward. Having said that, I thought I'd talk a little bit about how the MBA world has changed and education has changed, as I'm sure is happening in your own respective workplaces with, you know, telecommuting now being perhaps a permanent fixture. We've learned a lot over the last year. We've learned that we can pivot when we need to. Fortunately, Anderson has been teaching hybrid courses now for 9 years, and 5 of those in EMBA. So we were a little bit more prepared than other schools to make that pivot, and we've made a pivot back. However, what we also learned is that there were a lot of really interesting opportunities and things that happened because of COVID and because we were virtual. I'll be doing a presentation to the industry at the Executive MBA Council conference in a couple of weeks about what are we keeping moving forward. So I thought I would share a little bit about that with you, that being online, being virtual, going through the whole COVID experience actually taught us a few things, such as that we can have learning take place in a virtual setting. So we not only went virtual when we had to, but we created a new EMBA section called the EMBA Blended section because our programs, believe it or not, grew the last 2 years. So we added a third section. We have our traditional biweekly. We have our monthly hybrid where the 50% of the course is asynchronous. And then last year we created, both in our executive MBA program and this year in our part-time MBA program, our blended section, where the students come once a month, but the virtual or remote learning takes place synchronously on Zoom. So we're keeping that because that is a nice schedule option. Assuming the incoming class is big enough to have 3 sections again, then we will have the blended section. So that's kind of cool that you now have both an asynchronous and a synchronous option for how you want to learn, or you can just come every 2 weeks like our traditional EMBAs. We used a lot of tech tools. in teaching. And what I found when I started doing some lectures earlier this fall in our Leadership Foundations Week is like, I kind of like some of these tech tools. I'm going to keep it. So there I was using, Padlet and Kahoot and, Poll Everywhere and everything else in a live class. So we've actually expanded our repertoire, if you will, of what we do in the classroom. We also took advantage of the fact that we needed to rethink learning. And we have expanded our instructional design team, who is now actively working with our faculty to refresh, update, make more consistent RLAR of our core classes in particular. So all of these things are a backdrop for there'll be some great things happening in your classroom and outside your classroom, of course, when you get here. The other thing we did is we had the ability to expand our executive coaching, our outside executive coaching. In a minute, I'll talk about career, leadership, and executive coaching, but because now people can Zoom in and meet with their executive coaches, we can get more executive coaches that are available to meet with our student. Those days of driving 45 minutes on the freeway to UCLA to meet with your coach are long gone. And we've all learned that we can be very effective doing these things on Zoom. And also, we've had a lot more attendance at our events and speaker series because people can Zoom in. So all in all, the point I'm making is we pride ourselves in being a center for innovation in terms of business thought and management, but now also in learning. And we really look forward to sharing and doing that with all of you. So that was just a little backdrop. Let's get into the weeds a little bit about some of our upcoming dates and things, and then talk about a couple of aspects of the program that I think are very beneficial for our students and a real hallmark of what Anderson has to offer. First, we have our rounds. These are deadlines where we hope to have folks turn in their applications by the deadline, and that way you're guaranteed a response within a few weeks after that. Although, Sarika, please correct me if I'm wrong, these are not firm deadlines in the sense that people can apply in between these deadlines on a rolling basis, right?
Exactly. It's a rolling admissions process. These are our major deadlines, but please feel free to apply during any of the times in between as well.
Yeah, and we do get back to you before that. So if you were to apply January 2nd, in between round 1 and round 2, you would probably hear by the end of January. And so, but if you kind of think in terms of giving yourself a firm date by which to submit everything, this is a really good benchmark for that purpose. And this is for our Executive MBA program. Next slide, please, Vanessa. For those of you that may be interested in our UCLA and US EMBA program, because Anderson does have a global EMBA, very different setup. This meets in modules of 10 days to 2 weeks in different countries in Asia, as well as in Los Angeles. Of course, right now, some of that is happening virtually, as you might imagine, with restrictions for travel. But we hope that by when this starts next May, that we will be back to more of a normal approach. So for those of you that would like to do a global EMBA with a focus on Asia and Pacific Rim, this is a great program. And this round 1 is October 31st. Round 2 is the last deadline, February 28th. And then this program starts in May in Singapore. And again, we'd be happy to answer questions about any of these after the presentation by our alumni. In terms of what are your schedule options, what does the program look like? It's a 22-month program. Unlike other EMBA programs out there, a lot of EMBA programs out there are very lockstep. You take everybody takes all the same classes the whole way through. While we do have a lockstep in terms of our core classes, which is very common across all EMBA programs, we do have a lot of electives built into the program. And you're also able to take electives with our FEMBA, our part-time program, or even our full-time program if your schedule permits. So our EMBAs, we find, really like to get a lot of the candy from the candy store and end up taking more than the 3 required electives, both inside the EMBA structure and outside. In terms of schedule, our 3 schedules are the biweekly, which is the traditional schedule. You start class at 4 o'clock on Friday. You go into the evening on Friday, all day on Saturday, and those are your core classes. And then on Sundays we have electives once a month in case you want to stay once a month on Sundays to have these electives. The first quarter of the month, however, we do start at 10 in the morning because we have leadership foundations, 5 hours of talking to you about how to be a better leader and know more about yourself in that capacity. Our monthly section, which we introduced about 5 years ago, is a hybrid monthly option. You meet once a month, same schedule, Friday, 4 o'clock to into the day on Saturday with electives on Sunday. And then the remaining time you do your work asynchronously. Professors post videos, simulations, online assignments that you do on your own time when it's convenient for you and the learning. And in case you're wondering, gosh, I don't know that I could learn that way. Yes, you can. Everybody just did for the last year. And second of all, we've measured our monthly students, there are hybrid students and our live students in terms of both performance and satisfaction. And we found it to be equal or even greater for the hybrid students. So really pick what's best for your schedule, for your life, for your family, for your work, not what you think might be best, because all of these offer good quality, consistent quality. And then we have our biweekly blended, again, only if we have a third section, but these classes meet twice a month, but every other time live on campus, and every other time, Friday at 4 to Saturday at 5:30 on Zoom. So this allows you to not have to fly into LA for that class, but you still get face-to-face with the professor and your classmates. So these are our three options, a lot of flexibility. And then, as I mentioned, our UCLA and US program, our global EMBA, 15-month dual degree. You get degrees from the National University of Singapore and UCLA Anderson, MBAs. And you can see we meet twice in Singapore, twice in LA, and then Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Bangalore, Mumbai. And I know right now with COVID, that does not seem like it's feasible, and it's not right now. So we're looking at moving our India segment to Thailand or Vietnam in February. But like I said, we expect and hope that by February of 2023, when this would be happening, we would be back in business. So anyways, this is what your options are in terms of your schedule. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So this is the layout of our traditional Executive MBA program. Sorry, that's my doggy in the background. All the fun from working from home. So the blue are your core classes. So these are, and there's typically 2 of these every quarter. Although some quarters, especially in your second year, we only offer 1 of these every quarter. So you have their sort of traditional MBA classes, but geared and focused more for people that have been in business, 14, 15, 16 years, that are more seasoned professionals and managers and directors. And then we have 2 core aspects that are a little different than the core class. So you have the traditional subjects, accounting, data and decisions, which is statistics, operations, organizational behavior, microeconomics, et cetera. But then we have our global immersion, or our international business residency, where we take you in country for a week to learn about business in that region of the world. Historically, in years past, we had 1 country we all went to. Now we're able to offer 3 and 4 countries. So you get to choose. So believe it or not, I'm taking 60 of our EMBAs to the United Arab Emirates, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi this December. It is open for business. We are doing the program. I'm even offering an optional 3-day fun trip to Jordan with the students. And so we will learn about business in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which is where the headquarters of more than 1/3 of Fortune 500 companies doing their business in the Middle East and Africa are headquartered. And obviously big real estate area. And so we'll learn about the Middle East, business in that region. So it's a really special part of the program. And then you have your master's thesis. Master's thesis would be one of 2 things. You can do our traditional master's thesis, which is called SMR, Strategic Management Research, where it's a 6-month, 2-quarter consulting project where you put together everything you've learned in your MBA and work on a real life project with a company or organization, helping them solve a strategic problem under the tutelage of faculty that would help you with the project. It's a great learning experience. It's very experiential. And really, we've been doing this at UCLA as a requirement in our MBA program for almost 60 years, one of the first schools ever to even do this. Now it's trendy to do these experiential things, but we've been doing this a long time, and we have a really good infrastructure built in to help you navigate this and really learn from the experience. However, some of you may be more interested in launching your own business. And so we have this wonderful program called Business Creation Option, which was just introduced into EMBA just 4 years ago. But now almost half of our EMBA students participate in that as their capstone project. And that is where you take 2 entrepreneurship classes and you put together a team of your classmates to have them help you launch a new business, to do something super entrepreneurial. And then, of course, we have electives. There is a potpourri there of some of the electives we offer on Sundays. We also have a 1-week elective block in the summer where you can come in and take 2 of these classes, half classes, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, or 3 hours in the evening. And then, of course, you're able to take electives with our part-time and full-time program every quarter. So that's the program academically in a nutshell. Next slide, please, Vanessa. I hope I'm not overloading you with information here, but as you can tell, we love the program. We love our students. And this is probably my personal favorite part, is traveling with you. I think it's a lot of programs offer like 1 global trip, or 1 week, and we offer 3 things: the required international business residency, which is what I described just a minute ago. In addition, our Center for Global Management offers 7 to 8 global immersions. Again, 1-week trips where you take a week off from work, you go in country for a week and learn about business in that region, and you have classes ahead of time with our faculty going over the region. I think I hold the record. I think last count I've been on 28 of these or 30 of them. And then thirdly, we have 9 exchange partners, schools like LBS, London Business School in the UK, HEC in Paris, Waseda in Tokyo, University of Melbourne in Australia, Cape Town in South Africa, Asan in Peru, Brazil. We're negotiating one now in Berlin. So you can do these exchanges instead, where you go into their school, take a 1-week elective with their students in their school in English. So all in all, while you're here, you will have 20 countries to choose from each year of programs that you could potentially do. Obviously, you can't do all of them because of your schedules and classes and things like that. I think our EMBA record holder, and there's 2 of them, did 5 of these during their 22 months here. But it's a great aspect of the school. We really pride ourselves in being a global school. It's woven into the classes. And here we take the classroom to the world, and we really enjoy that. And I'm proud to lead some of these. I'm proud that I helped bring these to Anderson back in 2007 when they didn't exist. So the next slide, please. And then outside of the classroom, you're always going to hear us say you learn more from each other than from the professors, because the network of Anderson, the classmates you'll be in school with, the professors you'll meet, the students from the other programs, the research centers in finance and marketing and social impact and entrepreneurship. There's a lot outside of the classroom that will enhance your learning and your value of the MBA. And this is a big part of it, is career and leadership development. We have executive coaches inside EMBA that will work with you to achieve your career goals, help you career shift, help you refresh your resume, negotiate your next raise, whatever it is you need from a professional perspective. pivot to a new career in a new field. Or you can take advantage of our executive coaching. Both all four of the folks that are involved in executive coaching internally to Anderson are, or at least one of them is finishing it up, certified executive coaches. In addition, we have about a dozen outside executive coaches, and students are given the opportunity to meet with an outside coach as well. This was something that we expanded significantly during COVID because of Zoom, and we're not scaling it back because it's so popular with our students. So we built it into the curriculum with 5 hours of leadership instruction and curriculum each and every quarter, a 1-week leadership week at the beginning of the school of the program. We have a leadership at Anderson program that populates the other programs. We have mentorships that we've developed with our student council. And so there's a lot to offer for your professional development. So this is a really special part of the program that is a very robust benefit to our students. And we urge you to take advantage of it. Sometimes we're surprised that not everyone takes advantage of this. Like, why wouldn't you? So next slide, please. Well, I'm going to stop talking now. I could go on, but I'm happy to work offline or answer questions afterwards. Let me turn it over to Cristina Marentes, our Associate Director of Admissions here at EMBA, and she is going to introduce us to our illustrious alumni panel. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Cristina.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Hi, everyone. I'm Cristina, the Senior Associate Director of Admissions for the EMBA programs. Today, I will be moderating our illustrious panel of alumni from the class of 2020, which is really nice. I actually haven't seen them since maybe December 2019, a few of which, like Aanchal and Ingrid, I had the pleasure of joining in China for your international business residential. So it's so great to see you all here. I will go ahead and let Aanchal kick things off. And if you can just go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a brief background introduction of yourself and maybe your career.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Cristina. So I'm Aanchal Kumar. I graduated last year from the EMBA program. I spent almost 20 years with Deloitte Consulting, essentially consulting for healthcare, public sector, automotive companies, pretty much across the board, every industry, for their large-scale tech transformation projects. After I completed the MBA, I was looking out, for a bit of a change. So I ventured from project management to product development. And in the last 5 months, I joined Experian, where I'm heading their program management function for their 1.3 billion consumer information services business and the product development division specifically. So very happy to be here. It was a really exciting journey for me. And for those of you who decide to embark on it, it will be for you as well.
Thank you, Aanchal. We'll just go next. Ingrid?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ingrid. My background is in building and managing online communities. So originally I did that in the video games industry, working at a company called 6 Degrees Games, which is a small startup. And from there, I went to Disney and then Activision. And then I was the VP of community at a startup called Tongle, which is a two-sided marketplace that connects big name brands like Lululemon and Lego to a global community of freelance creatives, writers, directors, filmmakers, and animators. So essentially there, my role was to manage this virtual workforce of people who they created video content for our clients. And that's the role I was in during the program at EMBA. And like Aanchal, I also got a new job since the program. I'm currently the head of educational experiences at Automattic. Automattic is the parent company of WordPress.com and Tumblr. So my role now is strategically looking at ways that we can use education to acquire and retain our customers and make sure that they're having success building blogs and websites for their own personal use and also for businesses. And then one thing I wanted to mention is that I'm also on the advisory board for Elums, which is a sustainable oral care company that came out of our work on BCO. Will and I were on the team together, so happy to answer any questions about that.
So cool. Maybe Will next.
All right, perfect. Thanks for having me, Christina. I'm Will Hawkins. I work at Warner Brothers. I've been there for pretty much half my life. I've been there. I started right out of public accounting at Warner Brothers in their theatrical film distribution area. Handle everything finance. So I've done corporate consolidations. I've done, business strategy around distribution planning, looking at some of our major, tentpole releases that we've had, and providing, budget guidance around, marketing campaigns, as well as release strategy. I've recently pivoted while I was in the program, coming out of that theatrical distribution experience, because as many of you know, post-pandemic, it's been very difficult to have films drive studios like they've been doing. So I've actually pivoted and actually in a more of a consumer-facing, it's consumer products and also global brands and experiences area, where I do strategy and FP&A work for their area. And one of the things I think with the program that was really helpful for me is being able to pivot, because we're in a situation and environment where we're always having to change. And getting comfortable and getting, set into your, whatever career you're currently in is a big mistake, in my opinion, in terms of, being able to have a long career. So that's one of the benefits of being in the program, was being able to have that opportunity to pivot. So yeah, I'm here at Warner Brothers right now in the consumer products area. One of the greatest opportunities I had was actually working with Ingrid. And still kind of connecting or staying connected to this Elums company that one of our classmates actually founded. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. My name is Stephan Hwang. This is very nostalgic. I know I didn't know I was going to feel this way, but Christina, Professor Freixes, and our illustrious alumni classmates, Will, Aanchal, and Ingrid, congratulations on all of your post-MBA accomplishments. And so I am a banker from a JP Morgan private bank before MBA, or during the MBA, I was with B of A. So I shifted and moved on to JP Morgan afterwards. But I help ultra high net worth clients with both sides of their balance sheet, whether it's asset management, lending, and incorporating everything into estate tax, trust planning, and definitely excited to be here, excited to meet everyone. I know tail end of our program, we caught the Zoom, but majority of our program was all in person. So this is familiar, not so familiar, but I'm definitely excited to be here, and thank you for having us.
Oh, that's right. Your last quarter was on Zoom. Your graduation was on Zoom. But for the most part, it was in person. So I'd actually like to go into our next question before we open it up to Q&A. If you could just tell us what brought you to the point of applying to the MBA, and ultimately, why did you choose UCLA Anderson? And maybe we could just start from Aanchal again. We could do the same flow.
Sure. So I think for me specifically, I had spent pretty much all my career life in consulting. And even though I had been exposed to multiple industries, I felt like I knew things from a technology standpoint, because that was what my interface was with the companies that I worked with. but I didn't really have any idea about core domains of what those companies did. So when I was consulting for healthcare, for instance, I was more involved with their technology systems, interfacing with billing providers and other third parties. But stuff like claims, insurance, billing, what are those domains? Which is something that you only experience when you actually closely met somebody who's doing that work day to day. I felt like I didn't have too much insight into it. So I wanted to branch out a little bit and learn about those domains. So that was a big reason why I decided to pursue the MBA. And I'd say that after spending 2 years with folks who breathe this stuff day in and day out, Will in Warner Brothers in the entertainment industry, Stephan in the banking industry, Ingrid in education management, meeting and interacting with those people gave me a very strong flavor about what the non-consulting work was like. So that was kind of the main driver for me. Of course, upward mobility was a secondary factor too. At some point, you do want to, move up and do, make more money. So clearly, absolutely, that was a factor as well. But just experiencing what other sectors might be like besides my own, that was a pull for me.
Yeah, I love that. Mine was similar. I would say earlier in my career, when I was working at Disney, I considered applying to full-time MBA programs. But at the time, since I was working in the internet industry, it just felt like things were moving so quickly. And so taking a couple years away from being in that workforce really would have pushed me a step back, even though the MBA would have brought me forward. So I didn't do it at that time. And then by the time I was working at Tongle, I was a VP at the startup, and still doing community management. But I think community management is still a relatively new field that a lot of executives don't quite understand. And so ultimately, I feel like I had kind of peaked into the level that they could see me in that role, even though I saw that it could have been viewed as a much more strategic role. So I decided to look into executive MBA programs as a way of translating the deep kind of niche knowledge that I had about building communities into higher level strategy that executives would understand how the work I was doing fit into the overall goals of the business. So that was kind of my goal in going to the executive MBA program in the first place. And in terms of choosing UCLA, it really just felt like the best fit for me. It's convenient to where I live, and also the reputation is so good. And I went to an event very similar to this one and thought that the people seemed cool and smart. So that really played into my decision. And I was right.
Yeah, all great points. A lot of what I was going to say as well. For me, looking at the transition into more of an executive role within the company, I felt like I needed more skilling up in that area. I think moving from what I consider to be like in the finance world, like a single contributor, someone that can bang out some spreadsheets or put together an analysis is one thing, but being able to manage people or manage a team that is being tasked with that activity is a different skill set. And I didn't want to learn that by chance. I didn't want to learn that on the job. I wanted to learn that by design. I felt like going into an EMBA program, that was really the specific, the thing, right? That was the area in which the focus was going to be made, is how do you move or transition through that leadership pipeline? And for me, the program itself, it was great taking some of the other, courses or non-core courses. But a lot of the core courses deal with leadership and managing teams. And I think that was the most important thing for me, was to gain that understanding. Second is, I think when we're in our, profession or industry, we're really, narrowly focusing on that industry, when all along there's disruption happening around us all the time. So within the entertainment community, technology is a major disruptor right now. It has been for quite some time. And I wanted to get ahead of that disruption in terms of understanding it, knowing where I wanted to pivot my career to take advantage of that disruption, but not ignoring it, knowing that it's there and it's going to make a huge impact, and it has. And why did I choose UCLA? I just felt as though as we move to more of a global community, there are lots of schools here in Los Angeles that have really good programs, but this one in particular felt had a much stronger presence internationally, globally, had a much broader reach than just Southern California, and I did think that it was more of an educational environment. I think being in industry for quite some time, for me, I had a network of people, so I really wasn't focused so much on just the network. It was really like a holistic picture where I needed a network, plus I needed the education to really kind of take me to the next level. So that was kind of the reason why I picked UCLA.
For myself, I think it's a lot simpler than how my classmates articulated so thoughtfully. I've always wanted to pursue my MBA in higher education, and I think after a long time since I graduated undergrad, I finally had the capacity, not so much now, so glad I got it out of the way because I have a 17-month-old, but definitely had the capacity there then and flexibility with my work. And definitely wanted to expand my network in Southern California. I'm from Bay Area and I reside in Bay Area. So I actually commuted from the Bay Area to the program in Southern California in the monthly program. And that's part of the major reason why I chose UCLA too, was that there was a monthly program, and I went to undergrad at UCLA as well. So that's another huge reason. And I knew how diverse, how internationally present UCLA was, and everything that came along within it, what everybody said. But those were the major reasons why I chose UCLA, why I pursued my MBA, and still here as an alumni.
Thank you all. Well, I know I said I was going to go into Q&A, but Stephan touched on a great point that I'd like to just ask. The balancing work, balancing life, and now somehow squeezing in school, but it's a huge commitment and you want to take advantage of it and you want to make the most of it. How did you make that balance? How did you do that for your 22 months? Whoever would like to take it from here.
I can start off, and I know all of us had kind of our own ways and techniques that we used to make this work. Somehow we did. It seems in retrospect a little bit unbelievable, but we did make it work. I think for me personally, I kind of set some time boundaries for myself, like between 6 to 9, I basically told my classmates I wouldn't be able to make it to meetings because that's, the time that I have 2 young kids. I, wanted to spend some time with them, with their homework and things like that. So that was kind of the time I set aside for myself that, and I, luckily for me, everybody respected that. So most of the time we had our meetings after 9 p.m. So 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. was kind of my study time most of the time, where I kind of devoted to assignments as well as meetings and things like that, which you will have many of. There will be definitely meetings, 2-3 times a week, if not more. I started getting a babysitter on weekends, especially on testing days when we had to take tests. It worked out great. I wasn't sure how my kids would take, to a whole day babysitter. Apparently they loved it. They still miss the babysitters. So, some things that I guess the point being, there are some things that were new for me, which I didn't anticipate would work out well, which just ended up working out pretty well. So it's a change for everybody. It's a change for your kids, for your spouse, for your extended relatives. But having some kind of a semblance of a schedule, timeline, boundaries, setting off with that helps. And I think communication as well, like being very upfront and transparent with your teammates. Look, this is my constraint. Can you please work with me on this? that is really critical. And I felt that went a long way, because everybody, when we realized, had a similar constraint, and we could all make it work collectively if we were communicative and transparent about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I was just talking to a couple classmates last night, and we were saying the same thing of this phenomenon of how did we do it? So I guess that's not super helpful, but we all did it, even though it seems really tricky. And I think it is a really important point to remember that everyone in the program is dealing with the same thing as you. So you can really lean on your classmates and support each other. I found that in all the groups I was in, everybody was really willing to kind of lend a hand and lean on each other. So if you had something going on in your personal life, or you had a busy season at work, you could kind of lean on your classmates, and they could step up for you, and then you could step up for them when they needed the same thing. So I was really kind of surprised and impressed by how supportive the classmates were in making sure that we were kind of lifting everyone up all together. Yeah, and I think the other thing is that the work kind of expands to the time that you give it. So if you are under a deadline and you need to get something done, you just crank it out and make it work. So I think you'll probably find that you'll be surprised by how much you can do.
I think one of the biggest things, and someone said this when I was, I think, in you guys' shoes looking at this program, someone told me, they said, you know what? Make sure your wife or your spouse or your partner, they're on board with you. Let them know before, just don't like apply to this program or any program, and then day one starts and they really don't understand what the time commitment is. Really have to sit down with them, because they're going to be your biggest cheerleader. They're going to be your biggest help, because they're going to have to carry that load for you, at home or wherever it is. But that is the basis of it. That's one. And then two, piggybacking on what Ingrid said, be very transparent with your team, because this is all about team building and team leading. And part of your role as a leader, even in industry, you're going to have situations where you're not going to be able to do everything, or you're going to be pulled away from something, and you have to rely on that team to continue to help move the project along. So I think that's just part of a life. That's part of life in and of itself. But definitely just, the help and support I got was really key with me going through the program. And then having a schedule. Schedules are really good, because at least it gives you a guide. It's going to change. It's going to be altered. But at the same time, at least going in with a plan helped out a lot as well. So those were the kind of things I leaned on.
Yeah, just to add to what everyone said, I think spouse support it's critical. I couldn't have done this without my wife's support. And so my daughter was born end of April last year. So that was towards the end of the program, right before we graduated. But luckily, and thankfully, wife was really supportive. And without her support, I probably wouldn't have finished the program. And that's very critical. And I think the other part is what Ingrid said is true. Everybody is in the same shoes, right? So you could schedule, you could plan, but there's always going to be changes. And you'll be surprised how much time you could really squeeze out when you are doing something like this, because you do have time to do it and you'll power through. And we all did it, right? So looking back, I think that's the two most important things to remember. Just making sure you have the support of a spouse, and then making sure that everybody's in the same shoes too.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for the advice. I'm going to open it up now, really this time, to Q&A. So if anybody would like to ask a question, I think the group is small enough where you can just ask it, unmute yourself and ask. And I'd actually like to bring, if Gonzalo's still here, hi Gonzalo, I'd like to bring you back to the panel. I'm going to bring you into the spotlight. And then, let's see. I'll bring, if anybody would like to just go ahead and ask any questions. I have some backup questions if not.
I have a question about you.
Let's see, Ashley first.
Sure. No, I just had a question about how y'all felt about the online content and being able to collaborate remotely. I know since the pandemic, we've all gotten way more used to that sort of format. But did you feel like you were able to still connect with your classmates, learn from them? Did you feel like the online content was robust, et cetera? That might be kind of vague.
I think that's a really good question because at least our class, we were, impacted initially. And it was really interesting to watch the teachers pivot because they were moving from an in-person experience to an online experience. So they were having to pivot themselves. But I have to say, like, the content was great. I totally enjoyed being able to sit in my PJs and actually, listening into a class and, participate. So it was kind of enjoyable in one sense. But again, what it really did was it prepared me for life during the pandemic from a work perspective, because that's how we're working now, is this whole like remote learning situation. But to answer your question directly, yeah, the content was very, it was consistent. I didn't feel like there was any gaps in the content. I still learned and had the resources and tools available to me. It's just we were in a virtual environment, which guess what? That's where we are right now. This is it. So that was my experience.
That's a good point. I was just going to add that we ended up, because the pandemic happened right at the end, we ended up doing all of our master's theses remotely. And so we pitched our BCO project remotely. And I think the role I'm in now is a fully distributed company. We're never going to go back to an office. The company has been distributed for 15 years. So I actually find that was really good experience for me to know how to present in a professional setting over Zoom, which certainly has its challenges, but they're challenges that as executives, I think we need to be prepared to handle. So it actually ended up being kind of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I think the content itself, there wasn't any changes, and I didn't feel like, the curriculum itself was lacking due to Zoom and virtual, but it was tough, right? Because we were in person, and then that's when everything started. And I'm sure the 21s and 22s are more used to this way, but we weren't, right? And then I think we were all trying to figure it out then. But of course, certain, relationships, and it wasn't as engaging with some of the lecturers or within the classmates, but it was very efficient. And I think we made do from what we were dealt. And I think looking back at it now, I think if 2021s, 22s, and going forward, you guys will be a lot used to this, and we're all used to this. So I think it'll be a very different experience. But at least for myself, it was tough. But when it comes to engaging with classmates, I think we made it work. We made it work.
I think everybody kind of summarized it well. The only additional thing I would say is there was a component of our, for at least me being from the monthly group, we only met once in person through a whole month. There was already a component that was online for the rest of us, right? So we did have those discussion forums, lectures that we were supposed to watch offline. So it wasn't like a complete turn, a 180-degree turn or anything, because there was a basic infrastructure that was already in place that we were used to for the last 2 years. I think the key difference for me was when it became 100% virtual, and I probably missed it more than my other classmates did. I really missed the in-person interaction. I used to love hanging out, partying with my classmates over the weekends. So not being able to do that for I think it was 4 or 5 weekends was not something that I would have chosen. But yeah, from an education standpoint, it worked.
It's a great, really good point. We've had a hybrid option for at UCLA Anderson. I think through FEMBA, the longest. I think is it around the 15th year, or 10th or 15th year being a hybrid, or 10th year, closer to 10. Oh, Gonzalo, you're muted.
Not quite that long. The FEMBA Flex hybrid started in 2012, but we did have some hybrid classes. In fact, I taught the first hybrid class at Anderson in 2010.
2010, wow.
As a pilot. But we've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Ashley.
You had another question that was...
Yeah, I didn't capture their name or catch their name.
I think it was Krishna.
It was me, but I think mine was more in line with Ashley's question. Actually, I was just trying to ask the effectiveness of the virtual classrooms and the virtual meetings while you're doing the project work, but I think you guys covered it well. I got my question answered.
And we've been doing that a long time because, we have a lot of students from all over, from the Bay Area, from San Diego, from other states, from Seattle, Nevada, et cetera, and even New York, North Carolina, even internationally. We have 10 international students this year flying in from different countries once a month. So the students have to rely on technology to meet with each other and collaborate. So that part, and we're back to live, so we don't, that other stuff will continue, but the instruction will be the same as what the 2020 students here, alumni, experienced their first 5 quarters.
We're back to business as usual on our end, safely with the masks, with the vaccinations. I see David has a question. Oh, okay. I already have a master's degree. Will it be less competitive if I don't add the GRE to my application? So the entrance exams are optional. Now, as of after COVID-19, we've actually removed that requirement from our application requirements. So you definitely not need to take an entrance exam. You're welcome to if you feel it could benefit your application. In lieu of an entrance exam, we've redeveloped an entry math prep class for admitted students to take. We have a few math prep classes and an Excel class, a statistics class that incoming students can take to feel extra prepared. Actually, those classes were developed by an Anderson professor, and it picked out content of actual math modules that you would go through in the MBA. So it's very specifically designed for an incoming MBA student here at Anderson. So we probably ask 90% of our incoming students to take that before they start the program. So it's very popular. So you don't need to apply with an entrance exam. You're welcome to. And if you don't apply with an entrance exam, we have other ways to help you feel supported with the rigorous curriculum. Let's see.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is Landon, friend. I'm curious more about kind of the faculty of the EMBA program. Hear a ton of really, wonderful things about kind of the culture and certainly the career advancement. But I'm just kind of curious what the faculty makeup looks like for the EMBA program, and then secondly, if that faculty's approach to the classroom, their pedagogy changed at all during COVID, and to what degree, if so?
I can lead with that, and then the students, our alums, can tell you what their own personal experience was. First of all, as you know, UCLA is one of the top research institutions in the world. So we highly value the fact that we have some of the top faculty in their field anywhere. As you know, for the last 5 years in a row, #1 public university in the United States, according to the rankings, if you believe magazines. And big part of that is based on the research that our faculty does. By and large, there are some exceptions, but they're rare. You will be taught by the research faculty. Occasionally, we might bring in a visiting professor who typically is themselves a research faculty. And, maybe a couple of your core classes might be taught by an experienced adjunct faculty, typically who has a PhD and does research in that field as well. So they bring that to the classroom. And they really enjoy teaching EMBAs because the discussion is a lot more, there's a much better discussion in the classroom because EMBAs are living it. They've experienced it, unlike a 26-year-old in the full-time MBA program. So they do tend to bring the discussion to a little bit higher level. In part, when I teach an EMBA class, I have to plan for that. I'm not going to be able to cover 30 minutes or more of material that I would normally cover in a full-time class because of the discussion, because of the questions. So anyway, we are very committed to that. And then, things changed in terms of, like I mentioned, things like the use of technology. We've made a big push in the last year and a half, interestingly enough, to try to update our cases, use more recent cases, introduce more diversity into the classroom in terms of what we cover. So that's work in progress, but getting way better. So I'll stop because I don't know if the alums want to share any of their part of that, but typically the newly minted faculty or the sort of part-time faculty don't teach in EMBA in the core. They do teach in the electives because you want them there because they're experts in real estate or entertainment and they come from industry, but not in core. So I don't know if you guys want to pipe in here, Aanchal or Ingrid.
Sure. I can go first if that's okay. I personally love the faculty, every single professor, and I learned a lot about kind of the qualifications and the distinction between, I guess, the core versus elective. And this, hearing Gonzalo speak right now, I wouldn't have known because the level of commitment that I saw was very consistent across the board with every professor, every faculty member that I interacted with. And just the level of corporate experience and discussion that they brought to the table, of course, it was kind of joint, with the students pitching in as much as the faculty, but it was, so many corporate stories, case studies, incidents that we heard, that we learned from the faculty. I felt a lot of it, you forget the content, the textbook content, but the stories stick with you. And I specifically feel that the faculty had a big role to play when it came to sharing those experiences, those stories. And definitely a lot of that has stuck with me even after the program.
Great. Let's see here. We can move on to the next question. If anyone has any questions from here.
Oh, I have another one, sorry. Just in terms of represented industries, how, and with the faculty, students, networking ability, how much is there in healthcare, biomed device, and that sort of sector, which you feel like is in this?
Sure. Well, we do now have a healthcare specialization within the MBA program. And quite frankly, that's it was very sporadic in past years. So the alumni probably didn't have too much exposure to that. But we have a professor that has a dual appointment at the medical school and at UCLA Anderson that oversees that program. We are increasing our elective offerings in that in part because of the specialization, and a bigger percentage of both our executive MBA and part-time MBA programs come from healthcare or have a healthcare background. So we've really, it's expanding and growing significantly as we speak. So that is something you could pursue, the healthcare specialization, take some courses in healthcare, biodesign, particularly launching a new company. We have a couple of entrepreneurship courses focused in the healthcare, medical device, biotech field. We have a combined program with medical students and engineering students called Biodesign, where you develop products and the business students help determine the way that they're going to make money. And you can actually take classes at the medical school, at the School of Public Health. You're at UCLA, you can take any class and you can even fulfill your elective requirement by taking a class outside of Anderson at the theater school or the film school or the School of Public Affairs or the law school.
Cool, thank you.
Sure. And by the way, you can take additional electives at no extra tuition cost while you're here in the program. So a lot of people do that. So like there's some really good healthcare management courses at the School of Nursing that are part of our healthcare specialization. So there's a lot out there. And the key thing is kind of early on identify what you want to do so that then you can kind of sort of plot it out over the 22 months. So
that's actually a really great segue. I'd love to ask the alumni if they completed any certificates through their electives, or if you kind of just dabbled in a few different elective areas, finance, entrepreneurship. I know Will and Ingrid, you did the BCO. So if you can tell us about your elective/certificate experiences, that would be awesome.
I'm happy to start. I didn't get any certificates, but I did take several of the entrepreneurship classes as my electives. So the first one was the general entrepreneurship class, and then business plan development, which Stephan and I were in together. Well, Aanchal, I think, was also in the same class, but Stephan and I were in the same group. And so, yeah, we all completed those together. And I think the entrepreneurship program is really interesting and exciting. And I think even if you're not necessarily thinking that you want to start your own business or pursue entrepreneurship after the program, I personally found it really valuable. I had worked at a bunch of startups, but still really being able to learn about the process holistically and contribute not just in the field that your expertise is in, but kind of across the board, I found really an interesting and valuable experience. And that ultimately led to me doing the BCO for the thesis project. And then outside of the entrepreneurship, I think I took a communications class for my other elective, which also was really excellent.
Yeah, I'll answer the next one. So yeah, I got two certificates. I got one for marketing and one for entrepreneurship. And for me, it was kind of not an early decision for me. It's kind of something I kind of waited a little bit, and I wish I didn't. Kind of to Gonzalo, Professor Freixes' point, it's like trying to identify early on how you want to plat those 22 months, because it goes by very fast. And then you're kind of scrambling to try and get these classes. But what I will say is the courses that I took, the electives, they were really enriching. That was the thing that for me was like adding a layer of icing on top of the cake. The entrepreneurship certificate was really key, not so much the certificate itself, but just the courses in terms of learning how to launch a business, which I think that in and of itself, getting that information from this program is invaluable, because you just never know where you're going to be in life in terms of, are you going to stay with an industry, or do you want to start something up on your own? It just gives you another opportunity or a leg up. So I thought that was really good. And then for me, being in entertainment, I thought marketing was a great area to go into, and had the benefit of actually listening to, I think the professor was like the ex-president of ABC Cap Cities. Like this person was like a real industry leader, and brought every class was him bringing in one of his buddies from his prior world. So we were talking to real industry leaders every single week. I think we had the head of I think it was Amazon Studios came to speak to us. I mean, these are really powerful people that came to these electives, or these electives for your program. So I think it was really beneficial for me. It was like the icing on top, but I would definitely identify what you want to do early on, so you can kind of layer that in with your 22-month sprint.
Yeah, so I took, I have the finance and then entrepreneurship certificate. And yeah, I mean, I believe you could take as many electives as you can and, within your capacity. So definitely do it, not just for the curriculum, but I got to meet the biweeklies and work with them because, usually we are in separate classes and we wouldn't have that opportunity. And yeah, me and Ingrid, we're on the same team for the BPD class. You get to meet FEMBAs from other programs. And I was just remembering some of the professors that I've worked with. I mean, to the earlier question, if you look at our website, the faculty website, and the bios under the professors, you'll see who's who of the professors and all their accomplishments. Professor Garmay for our private equity venture capital elective was one of my favorite professors. Professor Edwards, he's worked with the former governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger for California. He pretty much owns Latin America as well. So definitely take advantage of it, definitely, and not just for the curriculum and just for the relationships as well.
Great point, Stephan. On the bi-weekly and monthly interaction, the electives was one of the ways that I got to know so many more classmates and learn, basically worked with them. In terms of certifications, I did entrepreneurship as well as tech management and a bunch of other electives. I'd suggest the August block is definitely something worth looking into. I took like half days off each day from work. So I did I maybe just 2 electives per day. Some people did even more than that. I don't know how they managed it. But there's a lot of interesting electives that come through during the August block. And if I had the time and bandwidth, I would have probably done even more than I could manage. But there's a lot of interesting ones. And that is one of the opportunities where you get to diversify into different areas like finance, marketing, things that may not be part of your domain at all. So there's a bunch of them. And then you always think you'll do one in the next quarter, but the next quarter doesn't come. So when you feel you're ready to do it, just do it at that point is what I would suggest.
Well, soon we'll have alumni classes for alumni to audit. So when you're back and ready to audit classes, you can do that. But I wanted to mention a fun fact about the August block. So August block happens between your first and your second year. And that week, it's a week long full of electives, as everyone mentioned, but that's also the week that many of our international exchange partnership schools have their students come to our classes. So you get to meet people from all of the schools around the world that Gonzalo mentioned, also from our global executive MBA program. So students, UCLA students in Singapore and in Asia Pacific. So that's a really cool week. I think a really interesting week to really network outside of the US. But I'll go into the next question here. Naija, Jordan?
Hi, Christina. Thank you. And thanks to all the panelists and to the Dean Gonzalo for this panel. I really appreciate it. I have 2 questions for the panelists. I put it in the chat, but I'm not sure if you guys saw it, so I'll just read it again. First, what's the one thing that you learned during your time at UCLA that has elevated you post your MBA? And then the second question is, what's the one mistake that you made when you first started doing the program that you learned the most from? And then how did you overcome it?
Both are pretty tough questions. I can take a stab. Let's start with a mistake first. And I'm going to kind of revert back a little bit on what point I made about taking a lot of electives. There is one such thing as too many electives as well. So I think right in my second quarter, I made the mistake of oversubscribing, thinking, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world. Let me get as many as I can. And I pretty soon realized, nah, that's not going to work. So I feel like, definitely don't get carried away too much by peer pressure. Just because your classmates are able to do it doesn't mean your own circumstances will allow to do it. Also, your own circumstances will change from semester to semester. So what might be workable in one semester may not be workable in another, and vice versa. So the good thing about UCLA is they let you drop the elective till quite a later stage, so you can keep trying it out. And it's like, okay, at some point if you feel like you can't make it work, they will let you drop it, which was great. So I used that at least 1 or 2 times in my 2 years. So that's one thing I learned. I wish I had known. I didn't know it earlier on, that you could essentially be filling up your work schedule to a point that it becomes unsustainable. Now the other part was, if I can remember it correctly, what was the first part of the question? Sorry, I forget now.
Just what was the one thing you learned that has elevated you post MBA? Or a better way to say it is, what was the one thing you took away that has had the most impact in your life or career post MBA?
Okay. All right. Thank you for asking that. So what I have to share is probably not going to be very glamorous or very exciting sounding, but I think just the ability to work with folks from, very experienced folks with different backgrounds and personalities. I thought I was really good at it already, by the way, right? Conflict management, working with people with, varying priorities, deadlines, 20 years of experience. But once you get into that environment, you realize there is a lot for you to learn, to, work with people on that common goal, set the expectations correctly, and make it happen when all of you are stressed out, especially in your BCO SMR projects. By the time you get to that, there's a lot of deliverables that you need to do. There is a lot of stress, and how to just manage all that, still get work done, still keep those relationships, make things happen. Those are the softer skills. I felt like you develop a muscle memory during those 2 years that you retain later.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm happy to go next. I was just going to say that I think in terms of the biggest thing, well, I guess mine are kind of the same answer for both, which is, I think the biggest thing I learned was just confidence in myself. I think that from going through the program, I really learned that I could sit amongst these other executives in meetings and really speak with confidence, combining business skills that I learned in the program with this deep expertise that I had learned over the course of my career. And I think that was just really valuable, is having the confidence from that program to state an opinion and back it up with facts. I've really seen that has a pretty major shift in the way I feel in my day-to-day work since completing the program. And kind of in a similar vein, I would say the biggest mistake I made was kind of comparing myself to others in the program. As I'm sure you heard, all 3 of these lovely panelists are overachievers, and they took a ton of electives and got certificates. And that's just not the path I took. And I don't want to say I did the bare minimum, but I completed the program. I still have the MBA, but I just didn't beat myself up for doing what I was willing to do for the program. And I think over the course of it, I just really learned that that's okay. And I'm just going to do this program the way it works for me. And it was great.
One thing I learned that elevated, I believe, has to be the network, and has to be the network. I originally wanted to expand my network down there, but it ended up expanding my network up here in the Bay Area as well. And part of the reason why I went over to JP Morgan afterwards was because of the network. And but I like Aanchal's answer better, actually, because it just, you see here, I mean, we're all from different fields and careers, and you will never have that opportunity to work with these different people from different fields. And I know, you have a lot of people that you work with at your work, but they're all in the same field, and, not as diverse as you would like to see if you were, in an MBA program. Mistake, I would say, I think I learned this very quickly. You can't do all the work by yourself, even if it's your individual assignment. So you want to work with your, you want to work and collaborate with your classmates, because, that'll make things a lot easier. And, not just in terms of assignment, but just psychologically and just for your mental sake, it's better to collaborate that way. So definitely don't do all the work, and you can't do all the work by yourself.
I think one of the biggest things I took away from the program is just the amount of information that's out there that we don't even realize. And coming to an educational facility like UCLA, a research facility, where that's all at your fingertips, not to sound like a geek or a nerd, but I just thought the library was really cool. That was that was a great place to really kind of hone in on some of the data that's just out there. And when you're an Anderson student, one of the perks you'll have, I hope you still have it, but we had it. It was you have access to all these different research tools like Geithner and all that Forrester. There's so much research information out there that it's at your fingertips. And now in my own company, we're struggling to try and find that. And I'm leading the charge around, hey, there's data out there that you guys aren't using. Did you know about XYZ? And that's definitely given me a feather in my cap in terms of being able to drive some change from a data perspective. And then kind of mentioning, I think one of the things that first mistake I made when I started the program, there's a first week where they put you in it's like a crash course of putting together a project. They put you in a group of 5 or 6 people, and you have to come up with a strategy, project, all within the first week. So they throw you into this thing, and people all have preconceived notions as to what's important and what's what the drivers are or what matters. And that, got us into a lot of trouble. There's a lot of kind of infighting and bickering that you have to realize that you have to take a step back and realize that people do come from diverse backgrounds and they process differently. And I think as a leader, you have to understand that, diversity has a lot of different flavors. It's not so much just physically how you look, but it's also, mental. There's a perspective, and you want that. You want that diversity of thought, and as you drive a business, because that's what makes it all that much more rich. So, just the whole from a leadership perspective, I've taken that with me and learned a lot.
You're muted, Christina.
There we go. I know it's past 1:15, so I'll let anyone drop who needs to drop. Our session only went to 1:15, so staff will be around. Alumni, if you want to stick around another few minutes, you're welcome to. No, don't feel obligated to.
I think Brian had his hand raised. Brian, Bob?
Yeah. Hi, guys. And I realize if everybody's got to go, I guess for anybody who can stick around and answer this one, brief answers are totally fine. Curious about the financing side for your personal circumstances. Not necessarily kind of did you pay for it or didn't you pay for it, but did you have conversations with your employers, and was there how did that go, and what factors did you consider, and all that, the really just kind of getting at the financing part of it.
That's a great question.
Highlighted. I'll go first then. For myself, I don't think going in, I really worried about it. I got federal loans, and but it wasn't where, okay, do I pay for it? Do I not? Do I consider the cost? Of course, it was in my mind, but I think this was, at least for myself, something that I wanted to do for a very long time. So I knew that it was expensive, and it's, I'm feeling the heat now. I think got to start making payments starting next year. But I honestly wasn't a big factor in my decision of attending. I'm sure there's other circumstances, and there's a lot of the classmates just self-funded it as well. But at least for me, it was. I had it in mind, but it wasn't a factor as to whether I should or not.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. It was more for me, it was basically my cost of doing business. And it's if I want to play in the game, I got to have, this level of education. which also spoke to me. It was like, that's why I wanted UCLA. I felt like that's the strongest brand for me, in my personal opinion. It was my personal decision. That would work best for me. So to make that investment, it made sense for me. Some companies do subsidize and provide, assistance. I know, Warner Brothers, we do give, a little bit, they help out a little bit, but I can recall maybe like, say, 15 years ago or so, I had friends that were going where companies were paying like 50% of their tuition, but that's just, everyone has one. So it's like, it's become such a commodity, like a common commodity that just doesn't really, at least my peers, the people I interact with other studios, that's just not something that companies do anymore. A lot of some of my colleagues from the federal government or from corporate services, they actually did have, some type of subsidy from the government if they were in the Army or the military, but private industry, not so much. But I felt like it was worth the investment at that, just to cut to the point.
I investigated a little bit as well in Deloitte, and Deloitte does provide, as Will said, a subset, maybe I want to say maybe $10,000 to $15,000 annually. But they have it's a bond. So you essentially have to stick around with the company for 2 to 3 years after they've paid you. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if I was ready to do that. So I investigated. I would have probably gotten it had I gone through the process, but I didn't feel like I wanted to sign up for that commitment. And as things turned out, I would have had to probably pay it back if I had, done it. So, depending on where you are, I would say it's definitely worth looking into. Any amount of money you can get helps. But, also just look into the trade-offs and all the conditions around it, I guess.
Brian, I teach tax, one of my fields. So I do a lecture. In fact, there's a video somewhere on the EMBA website on the tax benefits. Unfortunately, when the Tax Act passed in 2017, they eliminated the deduction at the federal level. But the state of California, state of New York, state of Alabama, I think Hawaii, there's only 4 states, did not follow the Tax Act. And so if you live in California, you can still fully deduct your MBA as work-related education. So that gives you a few $1,000s back from the state. And if you get any employer-based reimbursement, that can be entirely tax-free. And I will do a lecture the first quarter you're here telling you guys how to maximize your tax benefits. And I think Christina there's a video we did of a session we did last year on financing your MBA, which talks about loans, how to negotiate with your employer to perhaps get some money from them, and also the tax stuff. And then my tax video, the links are in the chat. So, obviously look into all that. And even with the loans, when you finish the program, you can have a meeting with with our financial aid people, and there's refinancing options that can lower the interest rate. So.
Our financial aid team is available to talk to prospective candidates too. So you're welcome. Right. Yeah. So Eunice is our EMBA representative's name, and her information is on our website right there. That last link that I put on the chat. So you're welcome to reach out to Eunice.
Thank you guys very much. That's really helpful.
Sure, of course. Well, maybe we can close out the session now. Thank you all so much. It was such a joy, pleasure to see you all, you 4 from the class of 2020. So great to see you, and thank you for your wise words of encouragement and advice for our prospective candidates. You were incredible. Wonderful to see you. And
good to see you guys.
Everyone here, all of our prospective candidates will be in touch with a follow-up email shortly. Hope to connect with you soon. We'll have class visitors available. We'll open up class visits to the campus probably around January. So hope to see you on campus then. All right. See you all. Have a wonderful day.
Happy luck, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.